Okay, we're here with Bruce Woodruff from Rocky Ridge Projects. And Bruce, you are a modular barn builder in South Alberta, correct? Southern
Yeah,
Alberta? Yeah,
yeah, Central Alberta. I guess we
Central,
build
yep.
them up here in Olds. We have a display
Yep.
yard in Innisfail.
Yeah, that's great. And then, so with, I guess, just for someone who's confused on the terminology, what would you consider as the difference between modular and prefab, or are they the same thing?
Well, prefab to me, it kind of indicates that it's built somewhere else, and
Okay,
modular is it's built in pieces. So we're
I
kind of
see.
both. We build prefab in the shop, all the work's done indoors, but we build the barns in typically three pieces,
Okay,
and then
great.
haul them.
Okay, and then how long you've been doing this?
We bought this business about 5 years ago from the fellow that originally started it. He ran it for about 12 years before that.
Okay, great. And then you're sending barns all over Alberta or interprovincially as well, or
Just Alberta at this
just
point.
Alberta? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay, cool. So what I wanted to do here, just quick before we get into all the nitty gritty, I just wanted to share your website just quickly, so people can get a sense of your website. There's lots of information on the website, including the different products that are available, the different models, products, whether it's garages, barns, etc. I even saw in I think in your gallery here, I thought somewhere on here you have ones that are already done. So maybe explain those. Those are on a on site for people to go and physically view. Is that what those are? But they're also for sale.
yeah, correct. Yeah, there's a for sale tab up there on the top of the page,
Oh,
but
oh, here we go. Yep,
yep, there you go.
yep,
Yeah, so
perfect.
we typically have a couple of buildings that we've built somewhat for, spec sales and also for display. So they're sitting in a yard right on Highway 2, just in Innisfail.
Okay.
The gate's always open, the barns are open. People are welcome to go walk through the barns, get a feel for what we do there.
Okay. Okay. Great. That's fantastic. So, yeah, you can go to, and I'm going to put a link in the description so people can go to the website, and your contact information is there, and you can check everything out and get a hold of Bruce. So I'm just going to
Absolutely.
stop sharing this, and then all right. So what I wanted to do is basically just kind of walk through the process. We get contacted about wanting to build barns, and it's one of these things that's a little bit, there's a lot more to it than people think. So kind of wanted to go through the process, and I really liked what you guys were doing for a couple reasons. One is they look really good, right? And they're a size for people that maybe aren't looking for something huge and gigantic on a commercial scale, but something that, if it's a hobby farm that they have, or some passion project, or they got a couple horses, or a little bit of livestock, just something that, they don't have to create this humongous monstrosity if it's not necessary. But also, like I said, the way yours look is beautiful because they're very attractive, which is huge too. Because the aesthetic, I think, is really important. Well, it is for me, anyways. But so, I guess maybe kind of go through the process here on how you would sort of, someone would reach out, and then kind of where do you go from there? What would be the next step?
Yeah, so typically, people see the barns on the side of the highway. They have a friend that has one, maybe, or maybe they just run into us on the internet somewhere. Reach out to myself. Starting to think about what they want. We kind of feel like we fill a bit of a niche, I guess, for, like you say, people that want something smaller on their property. We're not going to build your 120-foot riding arena,
Sure.
but a personal use, maybe 3 stalls, 5 stalls, a tack room kind of size of a building.
Well, I guess on that note, then, kind of what would be the maximum size or the maximum number of stalls that you guys would do? Does that have to do with how you actually get it to site? Some of that, just the logistics of movement.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, we our barns are either 24 or 36 feet long. So a
Okay.
24-foot barn would have an alley in the center and
Yep.
then two bays on either side. You know, we our typical quote will be in a 24-foot building would be three stalls and a tack room.
Okay.
36-foot building would be three stalls on one side of the alley, two stalls with a tack room on the other side of the alley.
Okay, so that would be a 5 stall. So, okay, yeah, we won't get into the layout quite yet. Okay,
Mm.
so someone can basically pick what they're looking for, and again, it's not just barns, or it's not just for horses. So, what are just touch on a couple of the other sort of setups that you guys build, because they can just be barns, or would you call it a I think I saw one on there that maybe you could finish and turn into like a little cabin almost, a place to stay. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. So some of the barns have a loft above them.
Yep.
You know, so we've done buildings for people where they'll complete that loft as a maybe a guest room or a place for the grandkids to play.
Yep.
Um, we do have a garage version, so instead of the sliding barn doors, it's got three overhead garage doors across the front. We've sold a lot of these buildings, so people are going to use them as and without the box stalls. So there'll
Yep.
be like a workshop, or we did a smaller one for a lady that turned it into her pottery barn. You know, where she got her kiln and all her pottery equipment set up in there. You know,
Okay.
for hobby use.
Yep. And how much customization, and maybe we'll get into that, but how much customization is there with what you do? Like, for example, if someone didn't want, um, if they didn't want individual box stalls, let's say they wanted just exterior stall doors, obviously you'd have an interior stall door, but then just one side that was just open. So you'd have maybe it'd be open to a pasture, a paddock, and the horses could come in and out. But weren't, maybe it was 2 or 3 stalls wide. But on the exterior, how much you get into as far as that?
Yeah, we do, you know, quite a bit of options on turnout doors, interior finish. We've done box stalls where they're two standard stalls, but the dividing wall swings out of the way to make an oversized stall for foaling.
Okay.
We do tie stalls, wash bays. We'll leave bays just open for hay storage or place to
Yep.
park their quad or what have you.
Okay. No, that's great. Okay, so we talked about sizing, and then you've got some color options and some of the finishing, details that you can kind of choose from, and that would all just be in the kind of the consult of figuring out what you want it to look like,
Yeah,
basically.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And then as far as the finishing material, like on the exterior, are there options for that too, or is it a set material that you're using? I'm assuming wood is one of them.
That's correct. Yeah, we
Yeah.
have we have two standard options. I guess we do a V-rib metal. We do a
Yeah.
lot of those now.
Okay.
Originally, the fellow that started this business, he was a Mennonite fellow from Pennsylvania.
Okay.
So he grew up around all the Amish built barns, you know, all that old
Yep.
school character,
Yep.
and he really liked the wood. So he built a lot of wood board and batten barns,
Right.
and we continue to offer that. We find today most people are going to go for some kind of pre-finished, you know, no maintenance or low maintenance siding. You know,
Right.
the work and cost of maintaining a wood building is becoming an issue.
Sure. Yeah. And that's fair. Okay. So you said it was metal, or are there other options as well?
We've done a few where people want to match to, say, the siding on their house or something to that extent. So we've done a
Okay.
few where we customize them with like a horizontal lap siding or
Yeah.
something. You know, we're certainly open to talking to people about what they would like and see
Okay.
if we provide that.
Okay, that's great. Okay, we talked about the kind of layout. We touched on the floor plan, and people can kind of get an idea of that. And then and then you come up with, basically you'll have a conversation, everyone will sort of decide, or the customer will decide what it is, that they want. They've gone through that process with you, and then you provide them an estimate as to what that would cost, and then you can add or subtract whatever is going to work for their budget, kind of thing. So at that point, you're kind of like, okay, we've got our product visualized, and you've got the size. Anything else before you sort of get to site prep and sort of talking about what's actually involved with actually placing this on someone's property, or have we kind of covered all of that?
Yeah, I guess, for me, um I like face to face with the customer.
Yeah,
I'll come to your place. We can talk about what you want. We can walk through your yard, talk about layout, all that kind of thing. We don't have a website with a whole list of options where you can build your barn on the web.
sure.
We want to do that with you.
Yep.
And then everybody knows what we're doing. The estimates will list all the options with their prices, in individual lines, so people can understand what the cost of those options are and decide whether it fits the budget or not.
Yeah.
So that I guess kind of personal relationship kind of, quoting and designing it's important to me to make sure that people know what they're getting and they're happy in the end with what we give them.
No, that's great. And for someone like me, like I'm a questions person, so I think of, well, what about this? What about this? So like that hands-on approach, I appreciate that, because there is a lot to think about. So going to sort of that next stage. So now you'll come to site, and the sort of the positioning now. I think that's sort of the next phase of, basically where and how you're gonna where you're gonna put it and how it's gonna look, and orientation and things like that. So maybe go through a couple of those things, or the important factors that you kind of got to look at for that.
Yeah, you bet. So when you get to somebody's yard and you're looking at, we're going to put a barn in this yard, we look at geography, how sloped the land is. Do we have hills we have to deal with? We look at traffic flow. So, trucks are going to come into the yard. If you're keeping horses, you're going to probably have hay delivered, things like that. How does that
Mm-hmm.
impact? Some people have friends or family that come and they think about parking of additional vehicles, parking their horse trailer, other equipment around, and then traffic flow from the house to the barn, from the barn to if they have turnout pens they're going to put in beside the barn. I think about where's the sun in regards to this here in our part of the world.
Yeah.
Having a south exposure with some big a real advantage where you get some of that solar gain as well there. Think about where the wind comes from. We typically have in this part of the province, we have prevailing winds from the northwest. So
Mm-hmm.
how can you situate that barn to protect the animals and the building from the prevailing wind as much as possible?
Yeah. No,
Yeah, no,
that's great.
that's
Sorry if
great.
there's an echo there. Was that coming through for you too?
Uh, Not any. No, I'm not. I had
No.
a
Okay.
phone call showed up there. Maybe that.
Oh, okay, maybe it just it threw things off a little bit. Okay, now
Yeah.
what about things like uh, sorry, before we move on to the next thing, but um, in everything you talked about, so manure management and that, because I know that is something that like will can be a, I guess at this scale it's probably not that big of a problem, but when it comes to dealing with the county, like do you need a permit to put one of these things on? Like how much sort of paperwork is involved to put one of these on your property, and kind of, is there anything that people have to understand in that process?
Yeah, absolutely. So there seems to be, every county has its own specific requirements. Typically, you'll find it on their website in a land use bylaw.
Okay.
But they tend to divide into two streams. One is these buildings are a farm building on a piece of land that's zoned agriculture,
Okay.
and ag buildings have a lot of exemptions from the permitting process that can really simplify getting your barn in and set up. If you're
Okay.
dealing with a country residential
Yep.
zoning on your property, then depending on the county you're in, then you can get to where you may need engineered stamped plans and development permits and these other things that are there's all doable, but it just adds a bit of time and some challenge.
And some soft costs there too, if they're going to make you pay for
Yeah, yeah.
extra stuff.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Permitting costs, you might be, it's going to be in the hundreds, not thousands of dollars.
Okay. No, that's not too bad. And then as far as um, you know, when it comes to actually positioning, and I'm assuming that if it's a zoned ag property, that you're going to have less limitations. If it's country residential, then you know what kind of setbacks, like if lot coverage is going to be probably something that has to be looked at if it's not a huge property. Like if you're on 2 acres, you got to go, okay, well, what's my lot coverage, what are my setbacks from the property lines? So that kind of stuff, I guess, has to be looked at. But between the two zonings, I'm assuming, like, look, is there anything in there other than it's just the very obvious country residential is going to be more difficult, a little bit more difficult than an ag zone property? Is that fair?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's fair. If you're doing a farm building, you're exempt from a lot of the permitting requirements. You still have to follow the setbacks, so the distance your building sits from a property line or from a road. Those kind of rules you still have to follow, but you have a lot more leeway in what you're putting up and where it's going on your yard,
Okay.
and then what the county wants um, for information if you are required to do permits.
Okay. Okay. Got it. So, and then one thing, I know we touched on it just earlier, but in this process, um, again, I'm just going to assume that country residential, like, do they, if you're, I guess when you're going for a permit, if you need to get a permit in country residential, does manure management anywhere? At what point do they ask that question? Like, do
It
they ask?
doesn't
Does it come
typically
up?
not with these buildings,
Okay,
on this scale. For to me, with what we do, manure management is more about how much work do I have to do.
got it.
So I know I'm
Okay,
going to go in and clean stalls. So do I go in with a wheelbarrow, clean the stall, take it behind the barn, dump it on the ground? When I have a pile there, then I move it again. Or how can I design this building or the site around it to save me work?
okay.
So maybe I
So
dump the wheelbarrow straight to, or have some method of getting that out away from the building where we're going to dispose of it.
okay. So I guess like the county's not going to sort of like if you've got a creek running through your property and your barn is close to your creek, they're not going to say, well, we don't want you dumping your manure too close to the creek because of they really, that really isn't a concern at this level, this as far as the size of the building that you're putting up.
No, we haven't
No.
run into that
Okay.
with anybody. There are some setback requirements with flowing water
Yeah.
that you need to be aware of. Some of those are provincial regulations versus county,
Okay.
but the people in the development department that you talk to at your county when you're determining if you need permits or not can certainly give you good help there.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Um, okay, so I guess the next thing we should sort of talk about, I guess, a little bit would be the site prep. So, where do you guys do that, or do you need a third party contractor to come and prepare that for you guys to show up? How much involvement are how much involvement do you have in that part of the process?
So we don't do site prep. We
Okay.
uh, we have some contractors that we can recommend. We've got a couple that we work with that have helped on, over 50 buildings. So they know
Yep.
what we do and what we need.
Okay.
Uh, but all of that kind of work will be done by additional contractors.
Okay. So when someone comes in to purchase one of these barns, at what point do you say, hey, like you got to get your site prepared? Would you come to site first, look at what they have? You guys make like you talked earlier, you would come and have the meeting, talk about what they want, and then from there you would give them guidance. Like, hey guys, like you need to do this. Here's the contact, or if you have your own contact, but this is what we require in order to actually come here and install the finished product.
Yeah,
Is
yeah,
that right?
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, and as far as building these, what's maybe I'm jumping out of we can talk about this at the end, but just curious, like how long does it take to build one of these?
We do, around 25 a year. So we do a couple a month
Okay.
kind of thing. So, on average, maybe 2 weeks. Some of the bigger ones take a little longer, smaller ones a little less.
Okay. So from someone places an order, you can build it in a few weeks, basically.
Well, so everybody phones in the spring
Yeah.
and
Sure.
they want their barn in June.
Right. Right. I can imagine. Yeah.
So, so building time isn't really the issue. It's just lead time based on the orders that we have.
Got it.
You
Okay.
know,
Okay. So it's really, yeah, just you got to find your place in the schedule
that's
and
right.
yeah, got it. Okay. Okay. So you'll sort of consult on what needs to be done for grading, drainage, if you need it, surveyed or not. Um, and and then what about you've got deep services that you've commented on here. So water and sewer, power and gas. So I mean, I'm assuming anyone can go as far as they want. You're building the barn, and then if they want to have all of, if they want to have a full wash stall and sewage and all the rest of it, they can go as crazy as they want. You're there to show up and basically put it in position where it needs to be. Am I hearing that correctly?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's correct. So, some of that can have an impact on whether or not we have a draftsman draw up plans. If you're going to go hardcore, we had one customer, their heating system for their barn is way nicer than what I have in my house. They've got in-floor heat throughout the house, a big boiler, and beautifully set up. But if you're going to go to those kind of, even not that extent, but if you're going to heat the barn, maybe you're going to put a little bathroom in, so now you got water and sewer involved. It's good to
Yep.
have plans where you can take them to the plumber and the electrician, and they can give you a price, and you can come up with a plan on how you're going to accomplish what you want inside that building.
Got it. Okay, and then one thing that I was curious about is once you've done the site prep, these barns can be put like what do you actually place them on? Because it can be a concrete floor, slab. Um, Explain the different ways that you actually set them up because you can also just have them on screw piles. You can have nothing underneath. So basically, there's a space underneath basically, and if you've got your floor, is that right? So there's different ways to do it. Just go over that because that was the part I was also a little bit curious about.
Yeah, you bet. Gotcha. So, we go from site prep to the foundation. We mentioned deep services. If you're going to do
Yep.
water and sewer, you need to get that in the right order because that stuff needs to be 8 feet deep below frost
Right.
to make everything function properly. So when you get to that, those things planned and in place. Typically, our buildings go either on screw piles or on a floating concrete slab, so a thickened edge slab. These days, with the cost of concrete and concrete contractors, we're putting a very significant majority of our buildings are going on screw piles. For those
Okay.
that aren't familiar with screw piles, it's like typically a 4.5 inch round steel pipe, might be 15 feet long, and it has kind of an auger bit welded onto the tip of the pile. They use a big hydraulic motor on a skid steer or a backhoe, and they screw that pile into the ground. As they're screwing it in, they measure torque, so they know that the loading that pile will bear. So in that regard, if you're dealing with the county development department,
Yeah.
they really like screw piles because there's no question whether they're going to stand up or not.
Got it.
You know that nothing's going to move.
Okay. So, and then if you were going to go that route, can you still have a concrete floor at that point?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
the most of the barns don't have any kind of floor in them.
Okay.
We deliver the horse barns. Typically, what we do is we deliver them, set them up on the screw piles. Once they're in place on the screw piles, a lot of customers will pour concrete down the center alley.
I
So that
see.
gives you a good, easy to clean, no puddles, no mud,
Yep.
workspace there. And then in the
Okay.
stalls themselves, uh, the most common thing that we're seeing now is compacted gravel and rubber mats.
Okay.
You
So,
know,
and we,
sorry, go ahead.
no, like compact, like stone dust, basically. Is that, or even bigger than stone dust?
Yeah, like a lot of them are just 3/4 road crush.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. We've
Interesting.
had some that have used they like limestone fines.
Yeah, okay.
So a kind of like a pea gravel, but out of limestone.
Yep.
That stuff tends to compact really well,
Okay.
and a lot of people tell me that it has some odor absorbing properties as well.
Okay.
Um, so we've seen a few that have done that. A few old school people that still want a wooden floor in the stall. So
Yep.
you can do, compacted gravel, treated 4x4s laid out as sleepers, maybe
Yep.
16 inches or 2 feet apart, and then rough 2x8 on top.
Got it. Okay.
Um, I used to see that in a lot of, well, like my grandfather's barn, that kind of
Yep.
thing.
Yep. Absolutely.
Um,
No, I'm familiar with that as well. I guess if someone did the compacted gravel, you know, you would sort of when you're looking at the site, because the immediate thing I think of compacted gravel, if you're on screw piles, I mean that's kind of if I'm if I'm understanding this right, you're kind of exposed from the exterior underneath. So if there was a lot of water, would it not get, was there potential for water to get underneath the barn and up through the floor in the stalls?
okay, so it kind of gets back to site prep at that point. So
Okay.
the contractor that you're working with for site prep, you need to figure out the elevation that the building will sit at,
Okay.
so that when you backfill up against the building, everything's draining away from the building.
Got it. Okay.
Okay, and then you can
Okay.
fill with gravel inside. The base of these buildings are they're built on treated 6x6. So you
Okay.
have 6 inches of treated material to work there. You can maybe put uh, gravel 2 inches up from the bottom, and then the mats on top of that.
Got it. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I guess yeah, it really just depends on the site and that would determine kind of how you would want to finish it. Yeah, just thinking like yeah, you don't want
Yeah,
water coming up through your stall floor there.
yeah, or
Okay.
skunks climbing in.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then you mentioned about uh, if we could just touch on the plumbing again. So, as far as like having a wash stall, or let's say you've got a tack room with a sink, um, that obviously that's not what you guys that's not your department, but yeah, you'd need deep plumbing in that circumstance. There's no way to just sort of have a drain that kind of like runs out into a little bit of a gravel pit or something like that, like a pretty primitive sort of like just drainage system from inside a wash stall or something like that. You'd have to go like
Yeah,
proper
that
proper. Or are we
that
getting into
gets
territory that you can't really
well.
can't really
Those are
talk
good.
about?
Those are good conversations to have on site.
Okay, fair.
I'll
Let's
put it
leave it at
that way.
that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Fair. Okay.
No, but
So,
it's a good question. You know, if you're doing a wash bay, that's one of the advantage of putting the building on screw piles. If you want a concrete floor in a wash bay that drains to a center drain,
yep.
then it's very simple once the barn's up to come and set up the drain and pour the concrete so that it runs into the center and drains out
Got it. Okay.
into whatever we're doing
Fair
for
enough. Fair enough.
yeah.
Yeah. We can. That can be personalized for
There you
everyone at the
go.
time. So
Yeah.
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 Okay. And then also just the barns can have two stories, so you can have a loft in them as well, and so people can use that for really anything that they want, right? I mean, as far as the structural integrity, can people store hay up there? Like, can it hold that kind of weight?
Yeah, yeah, they're
Yeah.
designed to hold, to fill the loft with hay. These
Okay.
days, we're not finding very many people put hay in the loft.
Sure.
It's a lot of work to get it up there, and then you got to get it
Yep.
back down. So
Yep.
people tend to deal with their feet on ground level now. So
That's fair too.
more of
Yeah.
what
Sorry.
we
Go ahead.
see, more of what we see today is, personal use space. We talked about a guest room or I've seen them finished out with a little suite up there where a person can live quite comfortably.
Right. Or a home office or a studio or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hobby room. Yeah. You
Yeah.
bet.
Yeah. Okay. That's awesome. And um, there was you had sent me a time lapse of a project install. Um, are you okay if maybe I just edit that in at the end of our conversation here, and then people can kind of just have a quick. It'll just give them an understanding of your process.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Yeah. Maybe we
okay.
can talk a little bit about what we need
Yeah.
so that we can deliver these things. So uh, we bring the modular barns in on 3 truck and trailers. So
Okay.
they're 40-foot trailers with a truck in front of them. We need to be able to get that into your yard. So we run into some challenges with gates,
Mm-hmm.
narrow driveways, overgrown with trees or hedges, sometimes power lines within the farmyard.
Okay.
Typically on the roads, the power lines are high enough they don't interfere, but it's more in your yard that we have to be aware of those things. Um, and then we need room to get around if the trailer is backing up to the front of the barn. We need room on the other 3 sides. We have a small telehandler that we use to unload. So
Okay.
we're looking for 20 feet minimum on those 3 sides.
Okay.
Now,
So
when I tell you 20 feet minimum, we do have some tricks that we can work around. If there's fence posts or maybe a tree you want to save, that's where coming to your site and looking at what you want to do, I can tell you if we can do it or not.
okay, so that's what I was going to say. I was like, that is, yeah, that's a huge piece of this is saying, how are we actually going to get this sucker in here,
Yeah.
right? So you brought up a good sort of point there. Like, I guess when it comes to trees, you can cut them, but when it comes to power lines, how do you navigate that part? Have you ever had to have them removed temporarily, or how would you go about that?
So far, we haven't had to do that. We've had power lines that we've had to lift.
Okay.
Uh, so we just use a long 2x4 and lift the power line on either side of
Okay.
the barn, so make room to get through.
Yep.
And so that, and there's less and less of that. Those typically are the old farmyards that have been around for 50 plus years. And when equipment was small and people could move around, they didn't have tall things in there. But
Sure. And I would imagine. Yeah.
modern
Sorry. Go
sites
ahead.
modern sites are a lot more likely to have buried power lines, or if they're coming into the yard, they're up high.
That makes sense because I was going to say, yeah, I would think that these days they would sort of have some sort of regulation on power lines to have them at a certain level for these types of things to sort of happen. But anyway, yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. Okay, is there anything else that we've missed, or is just kind of important to take note of when people are considering all of this? Oh,
Um,
there was one other thing, and that was financing on these things. Is there any support that you guys offer, or should they just go to their other lender channels out there if they need to finance this? Um, Anything to speak of on that?
yeah, we don't get involved with finance.
Yep.
You know, we've so this is back to Bruce's personal opinion, but
Sure.
the that third tier kind of lenders that would be involved with what we do, um, I, I'm not comfortable with them. I would encourage people to find more conventional kind of lending. We're happy to provide any information that your bank or your lender needs, but
No,
that's the extent of what we do.
that's fair. That's totally fair, and I appreciate not wanting to sort of get involved in all of that. So okay, this has been great. So anything else that I've missed or that we've missed?
Uh, so I guess interior completion stuff, but I don't know if we made it clear. The trades, electrical, plumbing, gas fitting, any of that will be done by local contractors after the building is
Yep.
set up.
Right.
If you want to make that loft into some kind of a living space, that would be local contractors. Again,
Right.
we do offer insulate and line packages, so we
Okay.
can do a full installation on your building. Typically in the barns, we line them with 1x8 plank. It kind of
Okay.
gives it that Western rustic look.
Yep.
People seem very happy with it, but if we do that, then any services, electrical, would be running in conduit on the surface of the wall.
Yep. Yeah, that's totally fair. So again, just to kind of go through the process, someone reaches out, you guys have a discussion, you talk about what might work at a sort of a high level. You make an appointment, you come out, look at the site, then you can get a little bit more into the nitty gritty, and all of this stuff always I'm sure evolves as people are going through it. Decisions change. Um, and then once you're both sort of you've got an idea that's going to work and you're going to roll with it, then they place their order, they get in line, and then well, I mean, they place their order, they get in line, but also if they have prep work to do to their property prior to, then they would organize all that and then let you guys know kind of, hey, we're ready, let's come up with a date when you guys can come down and do the install. The time lapse I'm going to share at the end of this, it's really good because it really shows how quickly you guys can set it up on site that's ready to go. And then once it's there, you guys are done, and then basically any of the other stuff that's going to go on, from pouring flooring to finishes, and that's all done third party, and you guys are out at that point.
Yeah, we
Yep.
deliver these things we talked about all over Alberta. So for us to
Yep.
come from olds, south of Calgary or something like that, it doesn't make sense for us to do that
Sure.
complete work on the inside. You bet.
For sure. Now, and that was another thing. Thanks for bringing that up. As far as delivery, how far do you guys deliver? Like, what's your range as far as you being able to deliver? And if it's too far, what are some of the other arrangements people can make to have it delivered? Is that possible?
We've had people look at, organizing their own delivery outside of the province. It seems like it just comes back. It's just not cost effective
Right.
to do that. We've never had anybody, and people that seemed very serious about it, nobody's ever actually followed through with it. We do
Okay.
deliver basically throughout Alberta. We've been to Peace River, Cold Lake, Fort McMurray, down south, Tabor, Pincher
Yep.
Creek, down through
Yep.
all the pass. Um,
Okay.
so then our pricing, the prices that we give you will include delivery within 200 kilometers of Olds. If we have additional mileage, if we're going to somewhere like Peace River, then there's additional charges for mileage. If we if the distance that we have to travel is far enough that we can't complete that setup in a day, then there's additional charges for accommodations and meals and an extra day of labor for the crew.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. Yeah, that would be typical for any contractor. So,
Sure.
yeah, no, that's great. Okay, have I missed anything?
I think we've
I
touched
think
on pretty well everything that we talked about.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, well, Bruce, thank you. And like I said, I'm gonna include a link to the website, and your contact information is right there in the top left-hand corner of the website. So you
Yeah.
can get a hold of Bruce and yeah, get all your questions answered. And again, Bruce, thanks so much for taking the time to do this, and we will talk to you soon.
Right on. Thanks. Appreciate
Okay,
you doing.
you bet.
Okay. Bye now.
See ya.